think perhaps it's a bit of a cliche to begin with, but we do live in data-driven societies. Networks and real-time informations are inseparable parts of our lives. And, you know, our cities, homes, and our daily routines are regulated, organized, and lived with live data sets. Also, we communicate with each other with our built environment through data. In some ways, even though we cannot understand our existence with computation, these data sets allow us to grasp ungraspable parts of our reality, because they operate within the real world events and bring information we can value and repurpose for the organization of our surroundings. In a weird way, these datascapes have become the reflection of our humanity. And also in a generation where we have never seen a global event that has altered our relationship or the way how we inhabit the world, we have never experienced social behaviors such as isolation, lockdown, and social distancing. As much as the virus have divided us, it also came with new modes of being in the world and living with each other. And we think that, or we know that this required to be online, to move to virtual spaces. So what we wanted to do was to attempt to communicate the virus's behavior within the borders of isolated countries by spatializing a virtual environment that would feed itself upon the changes in real-time datasets. In a way, we wanted to create this spherical sculpture as a digital twin of the virus's behavior. This was very much linked to the idea to communicate the sensing modalities of this planetary scale computation during the pandemic time, and to show how the larger social body, in essence, touched itself, sensed itself, and counted itself as a means by which society not only senses and simulates itself, but also constructs itself.
According to Peter Sloterdijk, in a sphere we are never alone. A sphere is always a shared space. Dasein is always a being with and a being within. We think that COVID pandemic showed us how we could live together in the spatial dimension of the World Wide Web. During lockdowns, personally, we have mainly following events in social VR and gaming platforms, and at the same point this became quite a normal way of hosting and visiting an event for the most of us. It became a new way of socializing, of meeting and gathering. As much as we learned from the pandemic that the biosphere is fragile and needs a collective care, we also learned about new digital spheres emerging into our everyday lives that we collectively inhabited and incorporated to our daily routines to practice social and cultural practices. One can say that social media are constructing a new kind of virtual city that has taken over many of the functions of the traditional city. We are inhabiting hybrid spaces every day, a shifting and overlaying space between virtual and physical. And also our concepts of private and public, of inside and outside have been redefined. And so is the architecture of how we live together. So to answer the question, the identity of the contemporary human is not singular, but extended, collective, perhaps non-human, as its being in the world relies on digital non-human entities. And the same counts for our environments as extended, hybrid, plastic, mixed, and most importantly, networked.
Yeah. I think like everyone in their fields have seen this problematic from different perspectives. Like, I guess the answer spans from political errors to economics, from social systems to environmental changes, from education system to healthcare. But in general, I think for the first time we have seen closely the effects of Anthropocene quite closely, no? That kind of followed as a chain reaction in every scale of life visible. But one thing for us architects, which was quite interesting, was the phenomena of spatial restrictions that forced us to seek alternative ways of interacting with one another. So quite early in the beginning of the lockdown, we formed groups that were kind of constituted by architects, artists, educators, and so on. Especially here at Studio 3 Institute for Experimental Architecture, we immediately adapted our teaching modalities into virtual space. So we kind of started motivating students to, showcase their works at gaming platforms, and we experimented a lot with the given technologies. But also at the same time, we were trying to understand in which ways we can contribute as architects to activate the physical restrictions of this cultural venues, such as museums, galleries, and the cultural and artistic practices of these venues with the use of digital technologies. We then quickly practiced the application of streaming technologies, scanning technologies, the use of social VR, and the use of WebXR platforms that offered social and spatial norms. For example, in 2020 in Barcelona, within the events of Ars Electronica activities, we turned a full dome sphere experience into a shared social space, opening into the virtual space of Mozilla Hubs with projection mapping technologies and 360 streaming technologies. So what happened there was in real time physical and virtual spaces, and their inhabitants were able to interact with one another through the use of the practice of these technologies. What we then realized quickly was how inappropriate was the term social distancing, because it was not about that, it was more about physical distancing. And indeed, these spatial computing technologies have offered new ways of social engagement with one another. So perhaps this is the way how we could answer this question of what the virus made errors visible, right? Like which kind of errors were visible. And we think that there was an error in the way how we communicated the restrictions of the physicality. And yeah, I think this would be a quite proper answer from our side.
During all the restrictions, we relied on our digital personas and spatial computing technologies to navigate our physical surroundings. We think spatial computing technologies will be around us increasingly in the post-pandemic reality. Spatial computing offers an enormous scope of technologies, from VR, AR, to how the city and its entities in real time are accessible to us with their digital twins. They open up to a social and a shared dimension. For example, when we needed to attend a virtual concert, we could be present remotely through telepresence, or when we entered a restaurant, we could verify our identities through our personal digital devices that then would keep track of our position in the world, also to track the virus. So we realized this dwelling in multiple worlds. And there are two sides of this. This modality, which requires individual identities, increased the enormous economy governed by big tech companies, as they offered accessibilities to interfaces that provided temporal information about our surroundings and about ourselves. And this also means that all our activities are sensed, are measured, governed, and made profitable. From what is more an architectural point of view, we observed one thing, that communication technologies and the production of space are undergoing radical changes. They entangle and form new spatial conditions with one another. So we as architects and inhabitants of these future domains take this as a challenge and as our responsibility to research the technology that will be part of our upcoming everyday reality and interpersonal interactions. And we also have to inquire how to inspire, critically challenge, and design these upcoming hybrid network spaces.
Absolutely. Yes, the installation is meant to be a temporal space that reflects the reality of the COVID-19 by looking at the databases. So not only when the virus stops, but also potentially when the counting, namely the sensing of bodies, stops, the installation will extinguish. So it could be that in some countries the installation has nothing to make visible. Well, this is due to the policy of the country to deal with the virus, to kind of recognize its existence or not, or the decision of the country to share the data of their own data or not, and or even to fake them. So I guess the reality of the installation lies upon the reality of, or the complexity even of the countries, individual countries, and how they deal with their own reality of the virus. As authors, this was our intention as well, not to have any control over our project, but to let its destiny to decide for itself, to extinguish at some point as well, of course. Yeah. I guess we can say that we came to the end of our conversation, and we would like to thank you so much for having us.
It is an honor to be part of Daejeon Art and Science Biennale, and I hope that we will be able to be there soon. Thank you so much for having us.
And see you soon. Enjoy the Biennale.